People are waking up, and it kind of makes sense, to be honest. Like, we're conservatives, we're capitalists. Money is how we that's a form of communication for us, right? But if I can actually find companies that do align with my values, who do support um, you know my faith and my belief in how I want to run my family and how I want to parent my children, how do I actually put money into their pockets and to empower them?
Hello, and welcome to the Liberty Spenders Podcast. We are your hosts, Kurt and Kristen Luidhardt, co-founders of the Prosper Group, an agency that's raised over $500 million and elected over 100 members of Congress, 14 governors, 15 U.S. senators, and 1 president. And now we're helping your business get elected by helping you answer the question, what if you could exponentially grow your business by tapping into a unique and engaged audience that we call Liberty Spenders? Now, Liberty spenders make up roughly 40% of the country of conservative leaning or faith-based consumers, and they're looking to buy from businesses that align with their values.
Well, buckle up for today, because joining us today is JD Norman, the president of Active Engagement. JD's not your typical CEO. He blends political savvy with marketing smarts and flies planes and does all sorts of cool stuff like that. JD took the reins of Active Engagement in 2018, carrying on a rare family legacy of success built by his father, Richard Norman, another amazing leader that we know and admire. Chris and I have had the privilege of knowing JD much longer than that, and he's continued to impress us with the way he guides clients and how he's led and grown the business with laser focus. Some of Active Engagement's notable clients are the DailyWire, Babylon Bee, Turning Point, and PragerU. So anybody who's out in the market kicking butt is working with JD. And when JD's not strategizing, you might find him soaring through the skies, which we mentioned earlier, mastering the greens as a golfer, a sport I've never gotten into. Working with JD for many years, I know he brings that same dedication and passion to everything he does. Welcome to the podcast, JD.
Thank you, guys. Glad to be here.
We are excited to have you. I thought we might start a little bit. I know you talk about the journey of how you came to lead Active Engagement. I know your dad was involved in the business first, but kind of walk us through that and tell us about the adventure.
Yeah, I grew up in a political family. My dad started his agency the year I was born in '86. And so I grew up going to political events and rallies and conventions and all that kind of stuff. All through school, I said I never wanted to have a single thing to do with politics. You grow up in your dad's shadow, and you want to be as far away from that as possible. So I went to school and got into some digital marketing, supporting government agencies and government contractors. And frankly, kind of hated it. Loved the technical side of it, but hated the government side of things. And so about that time, my dad, Richard, was starting Active Engagement, and he had some starts and stops, as is typical with any startup. And at one point, he was commiserating with me and things weren't going great. And I said, look, what if I came in and ran it? And he's like, I thought you didn't want to do politics. I was like, well, yeah, but I can run this company.
And then he got excited.
Yeah.
You mean you'd consider it?
Yeah. And honestly, it was kind of an interesting segue for me to get into the company, because I had commercial digital marketing experience. And so I could come in with that past experience, but then I also had the political experience of growing up in a political household, sitting around the dining room table and talking politics. So I kind of came in with a slightly fresh perspective, you might say. And so took over AE in 2010. And then became a partner in 2013, and then actually bought him out completely back in, I think, 16 or 17. So Yeah, we're based in Leesburg, Virginia. We've got about 28 employees now, mostly Virginia based, although we've got a handful that are spread out all over the country.
Well, the big question is, did Richard really turn the screws when you bought him out? Or did he give you a family discount?
I don't think there's no discount.
Of course, Kurt would ask that question.
There's no family discount, but we it was actually a good experience. I've had many people ask me about that and ask me about buying a family member out, and my feedback to them is always, look, you got to approach it as if you're buying any old person out of their company, right? Like it's a business transaction. So we had an attorney that represented me. We had an attorney that represented him. We had, CPAs on both sides and all that. We both, being father and son, we could get a little bit more flexible with terms and that sort of thing. But, we kind of approached it with both of us have certain desires, certain things that we want out of the deal, certain protections. And we just laid it all out on the table, and it wasn't as much of a negotiation as it was just a discussion, like, okay, how do we structure this to meet both of our needs? So it is kind of an interesting experience.
So you're saying that you did not have to leverage grandchildren or the ability to see said grandchildren as part of the negotiation.
I did. That was,
and I just say that
I
you have
had
such
that
a
in my
beautiful
back
family.
pocket.
I know how close you guys all are. Exactly.
That was my trump
you
card.
need a little something. Hey, Grandpa. Yeah. Think about the future for your.
Well, it's so rare for businesses to survive even one generation. I think it's something like just 1 out of 100 or 5 out of 100 businesses survive a decade, let alone being able to get passed along. And I know that the Richard Norman Group is bigger than just active engagement, but it says something about a business that's stuck around for so long and kept value over time. You've had to overcome, I'm sure, a lot of different challenges in business. And I think for folks who are listening in, I love to hear, what's the biggest challenge? What was the moment when you thought, oh no, this might kill us, and how'd you get past it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we just celebrated our 15-year anniversary in February. So we've had our share of ups and downs, as I know you guys have as well. Any business owner for that matter. I would say one of the biggest things we were coming out of the election cycle of 2018, so Trump's midterm, and we had grown significantly. I think we had gone from 12 employees to just under 30 employees in the time span of 12, 14 months, something like that.
Wow.
And one of my business mentors, he always says, the most any one person can effectively manage is 12 people. And if Jesus had 12 disciples, if Jesus can't manage more than 12 people, neither can you. And I always thought that was a cute, funny little saying. But man, when we went from,
it is. I'm going to have to steal that.
Yeah.
Not that I would want to limit our Savior in that way,
right.
But it makes for a good.
Hey, you follow his lead, right? But it was so true. I don't know if you guys have experienced the same thing, but when we went from 10 to 15 people, crossing that threshold, I, as a leader, I went from knowing what everybody was doing, what every single one of our clients was doing, the status of everything, to all of a sudden having no idea what anything was happening. Balls were getting dropped. It was an eye-opening experience for us. And we're like, oh, we've got to grow up as a company. We've got to actually, put some systems and processes in place and actually, systematize our company, which as an entrepreneur, I had always kind of pushed back on. I didn't want processes because I didn't like processes myself. So why would anybody else want a process? But coming out of that 2018 cycle, it was a huge wake up call for us. And we had a lot of growing up to do from a personnel standpoint, from a leadership standpoint. And we implemented a system. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, the Entrepreneur's Operating System, EOS.
Yes, we are familiar.
Yeah.
And so we're hardcore EOS people. We hired an outside consultant to come and help implement it. But we bought in. I got a hold of the book Traction, and I read it in one night,
Yeah.
and I went through and was scribbling it all in, and then I dropped it and overnighted it in the mail down to Brian Davis, our CTO down in Harrisonburg. And I said, Brian, you got to read this. And he did the same thing. He went through and scribbled it, and he called me the next morning. He's like, we got to do this. We got to do this. This is what we need.
Yeah.
And now,
Isn't
Yeah.
that amazing? I know that book has helped so many people.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's incredible.
And we just got back from a strategic coach event, and they've got a booth there, and I mean that is a community that is completely bought in to that philosophy and having a system and being able to measure with dashboards and
Yep.
Because it's essential.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you're not the only one. I know that Campaign HQ and Nicole Schlinger and PJ Wenzel at Ring Unlimited, they all use the
I didn't know that. Cool.
system. So
Yeah.
but you've got some smart entrepreneurs on your side.
Yeah, one of the core tenets of EOS is how you evaluate personnel, and there's right person. So is the individual a core value fit for your company? Are they an AE person, or are they a Prosper Group person? And then
Right.
two is it right person, right seat? So are they capable of actually performing the work? Do they understand what they are doing, and do they want to actually be doing it? So we realized very quickly we had a couple of people on staff. They were very, very good human beings. They just weren't right people. They weren't the type of people that would succeed at AE. So we had to make some changes there. And then we realized that we also had several people that were just in wrong seats, and they were AE people. Mm-hmm. They fit our core values. And they were the type of people that I want to keep on my team no matter what, but we just had them in the wrong seat. And so we had to do some real evaluation of like, okay, let's figure out where the right seat is for this person. How do we leverage this person's skills? How do we put them in a position to succeed? So anyway, long story short, as to that was 2018, 2019 was a big changeover for us. But man, looking back, I'm so glad that we got through it, and I'm glad that it's behind us now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's also true. Well, it can be so freeing when you understand it from that perspective, and you're looking at people and evaluating people with that lens. It takes so much of the pressure off, and it helps you realize that you're just trying to find, like you said, the right person for the right job. And sometimes you recognize that the culture or the environment or the level of support that you're able to provide is actually not what they need, And so for me, I know it's really helped as someone who, of course, wants to keep everyone and really, cares about their employees, as I know you do. It's really helped me to be able to understand and appreciate that sometimes, the best environment and the best setup for someone may not be with you. And so when you look at it from that lens of service and what's in their best interest, you take yourself out of it. It makes it that much easier to make those tough decisions.
We have a saying, it's, when you do have to make the very tough decision to move on from an employee, we always frame it as we're releasing them to fulfill their destiny. And it makes you feel a little bit better about yourself. But so often you're
Yes.
right. They're very good people, and they're very good employees. They're just not a good fit for you. And they go on to do really great things. And so it's always fun to see alumni of our companies go on and prosper outside of our two entities.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the wonderful things about owning a business is the opportunity to help make a difference in people's lives, but it also feels sometimes like a weighty responsibility.
It is that.
We love it when...
More than sometimes.
Yes. we love it when people can grow with us and advance and be a part of our business for a long term. Again, that's one of the most rewarding things when you see that from folks. But it's also one of the most challenging things is sometimes they promote themselves to the point of they need to maybe go somewhere else where they can get that next level. And it's always challenging. And to recognize that. But we're also excited when we get an opportunity like we're doing right now to bring people together who love liberty and faith. And we've been talking to these customers for years. That's your bread and butter. That's our bread and butter. And I think there's a real movement going on right now as people who are politically conservative, who are faith-based, are really looking to buy from companies that reflect those values. I feel like I run into a new company every day that has really jumped out into this market. Just this last weekend, I found a company called Red Balloon that helps source workers who want to work at companies who are faith-based or who are politically conservative. And they seem to be really thriving. So it's just always something new. It's something that we're excited about working in. And it's an audience that we both know really well. But there's also people who are uninitiated, who don't really understand this market or don't really understand what we call a Liberty spender. But I know you have a lot of experience. So from your experience, what do you think defines these people? What motivates them? What gets them out of bed in the morning? And how have you for years communicated with our Liberty spender audience?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a fascinating phenomenon that's really happened here in the past, what would you say, maybe 5 to 10 years, where people have realized that for their entire lives, they've been supporting companies and buying products from people who, frankly, not that they don't share our values, but they are they hate our values. And I know the word hate is a strong word, but it's true. And people are realizing that, why am I spending money with, these companies that are pushing political agendas, that are attacking our children, that are attacking our faith, that are attacking our political views. And so as that's happened more and more, and we've seen it, pick a market, and you can pick out 10 brands that are not just opposing, but actively opposing our views. And so, whether it's Target or Bud Light or whatever, right? And so, people are waking up, and it kind of makes sense, to be honest. Like, we're conservatives, we're capitalists. Money is how that's a form of communication for us, right? And so, how do we vote with our money? How do we make our views heard with our money? And so there's this one aspect of we're people don't want to fund, and they don't want to put money in the pockets of people who are out to get them, frankly, right? And then there's also there's also the positive side of, hey, not only can I take my money away from them, but if I can actually find companies that do align with my values, who do support, my faith and my, belief in how I want to run my family and how I want to parent my children, how do I actually put money into their pockets and to empower them? And so it's this kind of shift into, I kind of call it a parallel economy almost, where it doesn't matter what market you're talking about. Like, there are, like, just as you said, Kurt, there are companies popping up every single day that are alternatives to, the big Target brands and Bud Light brands and coffee brands, and you pick it, and there's alternatives now. And so part of it is that, I think, part of it is also there's a real fear, especially in the business world, of this cancel culture, and worrying about, frankly, what I'm sending in my emails for some of my clients, right? Do I need to worry about getting canceled? Is AWS, is Amazon going to get mad that I have data living in AWS servers, and then they're mad about content that my clients are sending out? There's alternatives to that now. I had a call last week with a guy who has an entire tech stack, everything that you can imagine, that is a conservative alternative. But the word of caution, I think, for a lot of people out there is, it's not good enough to just be an alternate option. Your product has to be as good, if not superior, to the mainline branding. You can't just throw something out there and just be like, I'm patriotic, yay, and money comes rolling in. Your product's got to be top notch. It's got to be able to go head to head with the mainstream product, and your marketing has to be top notch. Your downstream marketing, once you get your first customer in, how you build a relationship with that customer. But look, most of these people have really awesome stories to tell, and so it's really easy to tell those stories. But you got to know what you're doing, and you got to bring your A game. So you're right. We've worked with a number of these types of clients. I mean, anybody from like a DailyWire who is, I mean, they've gone all the way to, filming their own movies and have an entire production facility. I mean, they're so much bigger than just a Ben Shapiro podcast these days.
Yeah, I'm personally very excited about the effort they're putting into children's programming and some of those new announcements. I think it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah. Well, there's some razors now.
Yeah, that's right.
Razors, chocolates.
I saw they've got a new 5-blade razor coming out. I'm really pumped about replacing my razors with those.
There you go.
But they're proving something, which you and I know is true, which a lot of businesses need to understand. They've built a giant, profitable, alternative media organization targeted entirely at this Liberty spender audience. And they've done it without bringing to the network, Mel Gibson or some famous actor. They've just provided quality programming. Yes, they have some popular podcast hosts, but they know their market and they know what they want. And they also know that many of us feel like there's not a good, viable alternative. You can't turn on broadcast television without seeing some TV show espousing values that we don't support or making fun of us. And so I think DailyWire is such a great example, in my opinion, of a Liberty spender business. And of course, now they've turned it into selling products. I wouldn't have predicted that.
I would not have seen that coming at all. So
yeah, I mean, and what could be any different than chocolates and razors, right?
But they've grown so big. I was down in their headquarters down in Nashville, and you walk in, and it's just this huge, expansive room of just rows and rows and rows of desks, and you're like, this is incredible. Like, I remember when their headquarters were out in California, and it was one building and 20 people, and Ben Shapiro's walking down the hallway drinking a cup of coffee, and now it's the real deal.
I remember when they were started.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't. I don't know how old they are now, but I remember when they started. And I'm not that old.
Yeah.
I mean, this is probably less than a decade.
It was
my guess.
Roughly 2015, because we helped we helped on the email side when they launched. So it was middle of 2015.
9 years. Yeah, what they've put together in that short time frame. Again, it's just a demonstration of the power and of the fact that in business, what are you trying to do? You're trying to create something that the public, that your customers clamoring for, and they've done that there. And I think there's something to learn there about, what do Liberty spender folks need. I mean, considering one of your other clients, Babylon Bee, who shares something in common with that, right? They make a lot of great conservative content, humorous conservative content, sarcastic, that sort of thing, and have also thrived in this market. And so what I'm kind of curious, what do you think makes these businesses work? Why? I mean, I know that the grand idea, they're marketing to Liberty spenders, but what are they doing that so well?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's what makes any successful entrepreneur tick. It's a love and a passion for what they do. These people are, in from a mindset perspective, similar side that we are. But people are becoming more and more realizing that for so long, especially in the business world, your faith, your politics, there was no place for that in the business world, and um, people are realizing that that's not true. And the other side is injecting their belief system into and actively forcing people to go along with it. And people are waking up and realizing that we don't have to do this anymore. We can go out and make conservative content and make it really, really good. And there's going to be an audience for that. We can go out and make uh, coffee and have it supporting a cause that I'm passionate about, and that can be a part of the marketing around it. But it's going to be a good coffee, and so it's passion about what they're doing, but it's also waking up and realizing that your faith, your values. One of the sayings that I use a lot in just daily life is attempting to live a non-compartmentalized life, right? That I'm the same man at home with my wife, the same man with my children, the same man at work in front of my employees. But where it gets really tough is being the same guy out in the golf course, drinking a beer with my buddies and still being uncompartmentalized and living that same life. But a lot of that is very true in this commercial space and in this world. Like, right, you can be the same person and have the same values and live that, and people see and recognize that, and especially when they share those values, they're going to be attracted to you.
I so appreciate what you just said. And I was thinking about your question, Kurt, about what makes that work. And like you said, it is a passion for what they do, but it's a passion for who they're trying to serve. When I think about even just what you were sharing with your own entrepreneurial journey, and if you don't love what you do, what you commented on, but if you're also not motivated to do right by your customer, right, or your desired customer, your prospective customer, and you're thinking about what is it that they need and how can I provide it? How can I do a better job? That's what I think is so amazing about some of these brands we just mentioned, like DailyWire. And you alluded to that, which is you have to provide a top-notch, top-quality service with an excellent, customer experience, consumer experience. And so that is so important. And it's something that, as we talk to people and people ask us, what is this all about? Who are these Liberty spenders? There's a lot of emphasis on the marketing, but the delivery side that you talked about so eloquently earlier about just honing your business and making sure that runs well. Anyway, it's just so important. And I was appreciating that you were alluding to that in your own story.
Yeah, I mean, it's a phrase that we use in my peer advisory group is business as a ministry, right? How you have your business as business, right? You're making payroll, you're paying your rent, you're paying your vendors, you're out there selling clients. But then how do you use your business as a ministry? And you think about how many people that your business touches every year, and immediately you think, oh, I have 25 employees. There must be 25 people. No, you got 25 employees with 5 to 6 people in each household, and you've got 30 vendors, and you've got 50 clients, and you're touching each one of those people. And if you're a B2C type of company, which I'm not, but if you were, that market gets exponentially bigger, right? You could have thousands upon thousands of customers. How do you use your business as a ministry? How do you use that to glorify your Lord, and how do you touch those people and bring value above and beyond just the product? You look at somebody like a Chick-fil-A who's done this on a otherworldly level for years, but there's no reason that you can't and you should. You're called to use your business to have positive impact on people, and goes all the way down to how you treat your employees and that sort of thing. But it goes all the way up to public marketing exposure and how you treat your customers and how you treat your clients. So I think you're absolutely right. it's a hard lesson, especially for, I learned this lesson, thankfully, relatively early in owning the business. But as a young entrepreneur, oftentimes we get really big heads, right? Because we think, oh, look at this business I'm shepherding and running, and I'm, millions of dollars in profit every year. I'm so great. And you're like, no, this isn't your company, Kurt and Kristen. This is God's company. He tapped you on the shoulder to run it. And it's not active engagement. It's not my company. It's the Lord's company. And he just asked me to shepherd it for him for a little bit, and he could take it away from me just like that. So, just having that, approaching life in that mentality, I think is just so valuable. But back to delivery spenders, I mean, these people, they see that, and they see how companies are run from the internal and inside, and how they treat their employees and how they treat their clients and customers. And they're going to resonate when they have that story told to them, but you got to tell them. So
Yeah, well, and it does. Chick-fil-A is such a great example of all the principles you've talked about. They make a killer chicken sandwich.
Love it.
And so I'd go there for the chicken sandwich alone, but I also go there because they have built such a unique business reflective of the owner's values and their faith values. But they come out in simple things like the way you're treated by the employees.
Yeah.
And frankly, the competence of said employees, which is unparalleled in the fast food space. When you go up to any other fast food restaurant, it's a little bit of a Russian roulette gamble if you're going to actually get what you ordered. But I'm surprised when Chick-fil-A screws it up.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And so there's something just built into their system, and it starts with faith, and they've done some things like close on Sundays that are really public professions of faith. And, that you could say in many ways they were one of the original Liberty spender businesses. They were building this. They Hobby Lobby with big national brands who have run their businesses with faith first in mind. And you can see how it's really played out in a good way. And what you're saying about running your business for the Lord, I'll tell you, I'm consistently reminded, sometimes over my own objections, that I am not in control.
That's right.
And I'm not as smart as I think I am. And maybe you learned the lesson a long time ago and you sort of not had to relearn it. I'm
the
more
relearning,
stubborn.
the education never ends.
Yeah. I have to get smacked around on it every couple of years. And sometimes
That's right.
I think God really has to remind me, hey, these are blessings. Some of the things that have come, these clients that you got, they didn't come from your mastery. They came from people I wanted you to meet and work with, So I think that's an important lesson for business for sure.
Well, and the piece that came and again, we're all relearning it, right? So it's a lifelong journey of education. But the piece that came, I know for me, you were describing when you were having struggles, when your business exploded and you were trying to figure out how to fill the gaps. And I know for me, the beauty in that of knowing that you're not ultimately in control can be a hard one to accept, when you're trying to check your own ego or your own desires. And why can't we get this going fast enough? Because I want to get to this place. I've set this goal for myself, and forgetting the fact that we need to be checking in with God about what are his goals and how do we serve his kingdom. But the beauty of that on the flip side is then also it's also not up to us, which means we don't have to feel that pressure and that burden that somehow we have to manufacture this, or somehow we have to make sure we're doing it all right, and that we don't have any help, and that it, because the flip side can be true, right? Where you can get really down about, I'm just not smart enough, and I can't figure this out, and I'll never get there, and I guess I'm just, not someone who's cut out for this, and that's the beauty of it, right? Is that none of us are, and we don't have to be, because he's here to help fill in those gaps. So I remind myself of that. There's it's a beautiful gift on both sides.
100%. Yeah, that's very well said. I always, I think back, I mean, thankfully we haven't had a ton of financial struggles in our time period, but we've had a couple, but I can always look back at those times and see God's hands, at work. And, the first time going through it, I was a total disaster, right? I was physically ill, headaches, body aches, that couldn't sleep, that sort of thing. Just worried to death, right? And then you get through it and then you look back and you're like, oh, God was just taking me and just kind of pushing me down a different path. I can see that now. And then the second time you go through it and you're like, okay, um, you know, show me, God, right? Open doors for me. Where do you want me to go? What's the direction you want to take me? And it's such, you're absolutely right, Kristen. It's such a more peaceful experience going through it. It's just, God, I'll do what you want me to do. Just, show me and open doors where you want me to go walk through them. And if you don't want me to walk through that door, shut it. And, so, that's always my prayer, when times get tough is, I'll do what you want me to do, Lord. And, this is making, mortgage payment on my house, not the most important thing. The most important thing is making you proud and, providing and serving for my family and loving them and, drawing them closer to him. So, it's a comforting reminder sometimes, and we all need it sometimes.
Yeah. Well, let's put it this way. If I thought it was up to me and my skill set, I wouldn't be doing this podcast. so that's my reminder. So I'm doing this kind of kicking and screaming and knowing that I don't know and don't have the skills. And so if, as this progresses, I'll know that it's not because of me. So
that's funny.
That gives me some peace. It'll be easy to recognize where this came from.
Funny.
Absolutely. And it is amazing. I think at multiple points, we've talked through the years about the evolution of our businesses. And in some respects, we do the same thing on a different side. We've chosen kind of different set of clients, kind of in the same universe. We come mostly from the political candidate side. And you guys have built a great set of clients in the sort of center-right advocacy space, and now in this, working with companies like DailyWire who are more for-profit. And one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on was to help people who might be thinking, this is a strategy for me. I want to market to these people. I want to talk to people of faith. I want to talk to politically conservative folks. How do I find them? Where do I go? Do I run television advertisements? Do I do Facebook ads? What do I do? And of course, you and I know one of the great ways to get a hold of them is on email. And you guys do a host of things in that space. And so I thought we'd dive into that a little bit. Like, what are you finding is most effective when you're taking a company like higher ed, like Hillsdale, or I know you've done some email for things like gold and metals. What's working for them using that tool? How are they approaching it? What's working at the moment?
Yeah, that's a great question. So email's been through a really interesting evolution in the 15 years that we've been playing in that space. So just a little background. We came from political space, as you mentioned, but all in the 501c3 and C4 nonprofit side. And so we helped these organizations build up big, massive email lists and leverage them, mostly from a fundraising perspective. And that's really the core of who we are and what we do. We've gotten more and more into big media companies and leveraging email for them because their needs are actually very, very similar to the nonprofits' needs. It's good creative, good data management, good deployment practices, good segmentation and targeting within your list, outside of your list, acquiring new people. So that's been a natural fit for us. And then over the past couple of years, not necessarily on purpose, but again, kind of God working through the company, we've gotten more and more working with faith-based and ministry organizations. And so that's been a ton of fun and really enjoy working with those folks. But again, similar needs, different challenges. But at the end of the day, it's how do we build big email lists full of the right people, and how do we actually leverage them to promote the client, whether it's just driving readership in somebody like the Babylon Bee, or somebody like a Turning Point USA that's trying to fundraise and drive advocacy and turn people out at events. How do we leverage email? So, um, email has changed a lot. It's a different medium than a lot of kind of your typical digital communications. So, um, Google Ads, right? You can go in and you can target people, and you say, I want to target this people. You can upload custom audiences. You can get very targeted with all that, and it's really cool. But with email, you have a much harder time targeting people. But even more hard is you can't just say, oh, I've got this custom built audience of 1 million people that I want to go and solicit to. Let me just hit the send button. Because guess what? Nothing's getting inboxed.
Magically appear, and everyone will receive it, and then they'll all open it and read it, and then they'll all click.
Man, 2012 was such good times.
I know.
So
I know those were the days.
Yeah. So we've got these, frankly, kind of bureaucratic entities sitting out in Silicon Valley, who, by the way, don't share our values. Who are sitting there deciding what to do with email that we're sending. Do we actually put this in users' inboxes? Do we put it into a spam folder? Do we rate limit it? How do we treat these people? And so, one of the things that we've spent a lot of time and a lot of money and doing is building a very, very sophisticated deployment platform with the main goal of how do we get into inboxes and how do we target people better? How do we spend our clients' money more effectively? And that's really helped us both with the fundraising work that we do with our nonprofit clients and then also our media clients. But we're starting to leverage it more and more with what you guys are calling liberty spenders. And that's, consumers that are on the center right, faith-based consumers. And we've got these audiences. How do we connect them with the businesses that we know they want to support? So this year we'll deploy around 8 billion emails. We'll deploy to about 130 million unique people every month. So we have a lot of data on a lot of people. We share some of that data, some of the learnings about how to treat people and the good users, how to target them differently than the bad users and sort of our problem children. But we can leverage all of that for the commercial world as well. And so whether it's working with the Tuttle Twins or 7 Weeks Coffee or Black Rifle Coffee, people like that, getting their content out in front of these audiences. Kurt, you mentioned the gold folks. There's a lot of financial advisors and stock advisors that play heavily in this space, and it's just because our audience resonates with that, and frankly, our audience tends to skew a little bit older and definitely conservative, and frankly, have income to actually spend on a lot of these products. So we're getting more and more sophisticated every day, being able to target people. We, in fact, just a couple of months ago, actually acquired some 4,000 data points on like 350 million unique email addresses that are all consumer-based data points. So, everything down to charitable giving propensity, to value of your home, to what year you bought your home, to how many cylinders are in your car. So if you want to target a bunch of V8 truck people, I can build you an audience around that. But we've also got data on Bible devotional purchasers over the past year. So that's a really interesting audience, right? You overlay that with some charitable giving scores and some high net worth scores, and that's a really, really valuable audience. So we're starting to leverage that more, trying to bring in some machine learning and AI to actually help build some of these audiences in real time and target them better. So the future is really exciting. Man, I wish I could afford about 6 or 8 more senior level data scientists and AI developers.
I understand that. And it's interesting. It's really exciting what you shared. And speaking of the future, when you're thinking ahead to that, are you seeing any emerging platforms or things that you think are going to be particularly impactful or helpful in finding these conservative or faith-based buyers?
Yeah, I mean, so we use a lot of different platforms to find and identify these correct people. And then our core tenet in our company has always been that email is the best way to build a relationship with people long term. So we leverage texting. I hate texting, by the way. My phone, I don't know about you guys over the weekend with the news dropping, but my phone was just going crazy. So we leverage texting, but we leverage it for the purpose of actually driving people back into email. We leverage social media marketing, but we don't leverage it to just keep people in Facebook. We want to pull people out of Facebook and actually back into the email channel, and that's where we've had the most success. How we can do that by taking audiences that we actually build on the email side, right? I'm interested in what your consumer behavior looks like, but I am also equally and maybe even more interested in what your email behavior looks like. Are you are you an email user? Do you actually want to communicate via email? Some people don't, and that's fine. I just don't want to waste my client's money on trying to target you. Kurt, you might be my exact perfect um, consumer for a client, but if you refuse to engage via email, I don't want to waste my client's hard marketing dollars on you.
Right.
Kristen might be just a so-so fit for my client, but she's a hardcore user in email. I'm still going to actually target her, right? Because if I have a really compelling piece and I'm getting into email and she's engaging with me via email, I'm still going to actually try to talk to her. And so from our world, the consumer behavior, important. Even more important is the email behavior and how you actually engage. And that's really a lot of the value that we bring to our clients. And we have a lot of data that we use internally. We generate literally hundreds of millions of data points every single day on all of our users. But then we also ingest every single night consumer engagement behavior data points from third parties that come in. So it's kind of crazy, but like literally, if you are, let's say you buy a pair of shoes from a department store and you get an email receipt and you open up the email receipt and you say, "Yep, that's my shoes I bought." Well, I'm getting a signal that night that Kristen Luidhardt just opened an email. I don't know what you opened. That doesn't matter to me. What I do know is your inbox is actually manned and is active. And so that's incredibly valuable for us.
Yeah, and I think it's important for people to realize that because, I know for us and talking to clients about this over the years, it got to be really interesting. And you were making a joke about, 2012 was so great. We had when things with email were easier. But the same's been true even of people that have worked hard to build social media followings, Facebook groups, Facebook pages, and feeling like with just one change of the algorithm or one whim of that company, they've now lost that audience that they have worked so hard to build. And so I know that, of course, the same isn't entirely, it's not like email is risk-free because you still have issues with delivery and you still have those providers. But that's why I was curious about these emerging platforms, because I know in talking to other people in this space and other businesses, they're looking to alternatives. They're looking to say, okay, how can I build my own community in a way that's owned, right? Similar to when we're talking about conservative media and independent media, in a way that's owned or that I have more control over, so that I am not spending so many dollars. And to your point, that's the credit to you, is you may go to find these people in other sources, right? Or on Facebook or other places, but you're trying to bring those people back in to something that you feel like you have more control over. So it's an interesting thing to think about where that'll go and how people will still be able to, build those audiences and retain them as their customer base and feel like they have that asset that's not going to just be, taken away or their effectiveness drop significantly without any say so or warning sometimes.
Yeah. Honestly, that's one of our greatest business development pieces is we build a relationship with somebody, but they're already on MailChimp, they're already on some other off-the-shelf ESP solution, and then guess what? One times somebody gets a little mad at them and they turn them off. Some of my largest clients come to me because they were literally canceled from MailChimp. And MailChimp's not the only one that does it. They just do it a lot. But,
Yeah.
there are tricks and ways around it.
I think what you built is so important.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you highlighting that, because I know you've put a lot of time, effort, money, and development into that to protect your business and the business of your clients.
Yeah. I'll never forget, probably one of the craziest moments for us was back in 2016 when we were sending emails for Donald Trump, and then the ESP we were using said, well, you don't really like Donald Trump, so we're shutting you off.
Yep.
In the middle of the presidential campaign with just a few months to go.
And I remember getting on the phone, right, with the owner, the CEO, and there was a whole cast of people on the phone having this discussion. And of course we had talked to them about this ahead of time, right, as kind of to make sure they could handle the volume and that we had everything in place. And so yeah, sorry, you brought that up, Kurt. It's giving me PTSD flashbacks.
But that's exactly what we're talking about
but that happens.
Getting canceled by some of these businesses that just don't share our values. And they weren't canceling Hillary Clinton. They weren't canceling Joe Biden. They don't cancel AOC, but they certainly cancel Republicans consistently and faith-based groups all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And we know that this cancer culture is real. And it's not just political candidates and organizations. It's also churches, faith-based organizations, people selling legal products like fossil fuel products or weapons, guns that are getting canceled all the time. It's a real risk for folks that they can't send emails, they can't be on Facebook, they can't sell, they can't do e-commerce. And, coming to somebody like you knowing that with JD Norman, you're uncancellable is a key selling point for sure.
Well, or to your point with the charities getting debanked, we've been in talks with some people that are coming out with some really exciting new technology and platforms to help even on that front. So it's widespread, the potential risk that I think people and business owners feel.
Well, it's such an absolute big issue, and I think to some extent, some companies, some businesses who are looking at this, they're listening to us and they're saying, this is intriguing. I see how other businesses are succeeding here, but they're maybe they have some mistaken impressions of our audience or what it takes to succeed here. I know that some think maybe they got to get overly political, and I don't think that's necessarily the case, or they think this audience is small. They don't recognize just the size and the scope of an audience that could, for example, they're buying a couple $100 million a year of Black Rifle Coffee Company. So this is not a small audience. What other impressions, mistaken impressions, do you think business owners might have misperceptions of this industry or what it takes to market to them?
You have to approach this as you approach any type of an advertising source. You have to be strategic. You have to be willing to invest and put some time and effort and actually put a good product out there. The biggest piece is telling a story. The ones that are successful tell a really good story. I have some friends that are actually nearby up here in Virginia. One's called Flags of Valor. They are a veteran-owned, every single one of their employees are veterans. Most of them are wounded veterans, and they hand make these beautiful flags, flagsofvalor.com, beautiful flags out of wood, and sell them, and they're really works of art. I've got one hanging in my office. But they do an amazing job of telling their story, and they do it through video and really high quality video production, and they do it through their prints, and they actually go in and highlight their individual employees, but they do a great job of telling the story, and that's not easy, right? I mean, you gotta kind of know what you're doing, and we can help with a little bit with that, but that's there are many other marketing companies out there that do a great job as well, that are just more generic marketing. So, um, that's the biggest piece that I would say is these people really like to hear the story behind the product. They want to know it's a good product, but they want to hear the story. One other product I'll highlight. I actually had a kid, Anton, who worked for me, and he started a company called 7 Weeks Coffee. And the story behind it is a coffee bean. A baby is the size of a coffee bean at 7 weeks, and so that's why it's called 7 Weeks Coffee. And 10% of their revenue, not net revenue, not gross revenue, 10% of their top line um, goes to pro-life organizations, whether it be women's centers or um, uh, other pro-life type of organizations. But again, it's a great story. Their marketing is beautiful. Their website's beautiful. But he's killing it. I mean, he's doing hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, and he's giving away hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to pro-life groups. So, I think you don't have to have a really slick little marketing hook like that, but it sure helps.
Yeah. Well, we tell our customers all the time that having a good, solid, passionate story about why you're doing what you're doing, what's your origin story, is absolutely essential to success here. And of course, it needs to be true and authentic. And so that's just something you got to get right in this space. We really want to make a difference and sell in this market, and they're not going to do it. Just like any other consumer, they're bombarded with messages all the time.
So, JD, I feel like I should also ask you, what are the top three, if you were going to give advice to brigands and companies like you do, what are the top three actionable tips you might recommend they take to market to this audience?
Yeah, I mean, I think actionable number one is find somebody who knows this market. And, I'm not going to pretend like I'm the only one out there that's playing in this space, but we know it pretty well. But, figure out what you're selling, what your value proposition is. I can't say that word enough, is figure out what makes you different, right? um, and
Right.
and how do you tell your story, and then test. The really great thing about all things digital is it's super easy and relatively inexpensive to test. Test 3, 6, 10 different approaches, right? One thing I've learned in 15 years is I have a pretty good gauge on what's going to work and what's not going to work, but man, I'm wrong a lot. And sometimes we test something and I think it's going to be just a total disaster, and it does amazing. And things that I think are going to do amazing are just flop completely. And that's fine. And, at the end of the day, you let the donors, you let the consumers tell you what they want. And then you give them what they want, and you continue to optimize that and make it the very best appeal that you possibly can. And then finally, don't forget about those people, right? Your one-time consumer. That's your easiest person, right? But build a relationship with those people. Give them value outside of just the product that you're shipping. Build a relationship, communicate with them, talk to them, and then and it's not just appeals the whole time, right? You don't have to just sit there. Oh, it's 20% off because it's Memorial Day. That's fine, but build the relationship with them, so when they do get the 20% off because it's Memorial Day, they say yes, absolutely. I
Yeah.
love these guys. They tell an awesome story. I feel like I'm part of the family. So
Yeah, I've been waiting for this opportunity, right, to maybe get a deal. I've been thinking about it
right.
around the fence, and yeah, it's so important. It's such great advice that you just gave, JD. That's very well done, very well said. We just had someone else you may know, Chris Turner, on an earlier episode, and we were talking about that very thing. And so it's nice to have that repeated. You got to find
That's
out what
right.
they want, figure out a way to give it to them,
Yeah.
and build that relationship. That relationship is everything. That trust is everything.
Well, JD, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. I really feel like understanding the importance of a good story is a top lesson for this audience, but also the potential of email, which I think is probably overlooked by a lot of businesses, is that it's not the sexiest, newest tool, but can really make a giant difference in sales. So thanks for joining. For those of you who have been listening, you can find JD on the Active Engagement website, www.actengage.com, and reach out to them if you have any more questions about what they do or would like to get them to help you sell your stuff or grow your organization or raise a little extra money.
Yeah. Thanks, guys, for having us. I really appreciate it. And it's always a pleasure to hang out with you all for a little bit.
Well, thanks for tuning in. For those of you listening, we invite you, if you want to learn more, you can join our Liberty Partnership community at libertyspenders.com. There you can learn more about how you can engage with this audience. There's also a great AI tool there that'll ask you some questions and give you some feedback about what may work for your business. So feel free to check that out. Again, libertyspenders.com. And until next time,